Alright folks, it's Make-It-Madu here, and I'm with the lovely and talented author, the Writer Verde Arzu. I personally want to say thank you for taking the time to sit down with us, and without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's go.
So, perhaps we can start off with just you introducing yourself, like who you are and where you're from.
Okay. So first I want to just say thank you for taking the time out to be here to interview me. I appreciate it. It means a lot. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I spent all the way up until I was 12 years old on the west side of Chicago. And then after that, I moved to the south side of Chicago. And if you're from Chicago, you know that those are two different, even though it's one city, they have their very own distinct cultures. So I'm a mixture of both a west side and a south side girl. But a lot of south side, because that's when my formative years happened, middle school all the way through high school. And I am the daughter of Christine Green and the granddaughter of Rebecca Berry, two black women who are very strong, resilient, and hard workers, very family oriented, loyal, and I think that through them I am, and so that's just a little bit about me.
Nice. So it seems like Chicago and your mom and your grandma had a huge influence on you.
Absolutely, and my aunties as well. Growing up around, I grew up around a lot of black women. I have 6 aunties, and my family is very heavily woman influenced, and I think that a lot of who I am is being a black woman in America.
Within like your family are there any others who were writers?
You know, I had an auntie Marlene. When I was growing up, I learned that she was passionate about writing, and I was drawn to that. It made me believe that I could be a writer. My mom also enjoyed writing. My grandmother was a huge Nikki Giovanni fan, which is why I'm a huge Nikki Giovanni fan. That's how I learned about Nikki Giovanni, who's a poet, activist, civil rights leader, Fiskite, Fisk Forever. And so I learned a lot about some very phenomenal black women writers through my aunties and my grandmother. And the very first person who taught me how to write is my mother. She was very big on penmanship. And through that is really where my passion for writing grew. I say this all the time. My mom's the first person who taught me how to write, and it's through her where my love for writing developed. And I learned about Sonia Sanchez from my aunties, just a lot of women writers. I learned about them through my family. Big ups, Mom.
That whole writing with penmanship and how that manifested into you being a great writer. I kind of heard you speak on, did you say Fisk?
Fisk Forever.
Yeah, okay. Speak on that. Is Fisk an HBCU, or is that where you went to school at?
Fisk is an HBCU. It was established in 1866, which means it's over 150-something odd years old. Don't get me to counting. But, it's where I went to school. It was a blessing that I ended up at Fisk. Totally God's hands for sure. And Fisk taught me a lot about myself, including how to not take no for an answer. And I think that's one of my foundational principles is as soon as I hear no is just the beginning. Me and my wife were just talking about that the other day. That's why I think if anybody's gone to an HBCU, 9 times out of 10, that is one of your foundational principles is never to take no for an answer. No is just the beginning. It's the starting ground to getting to the yes. Yeah.
So as a writer, as a creative, those challenges as, being faced with a no?
I'm faced with no pretty much every single day. If you went to an HBCU, you go to the financial aid office, they tell you, no, your money's not ready, and I think that's really where it starts from, right? Learning, you can't get into this class, and all those different types of skills that you learn and develop. As a writer, no comes in forms of, you applied for this magazine, you wanted to be featured in it, and they tell you no, and that happens a lot, right? So that's really no. And then as a writer, they tell you just to be prepared for the no just in general, because there's just going to be a lot of rejections. And I think it's a part of the growing process. For myself as an independent writer, though, the no comes in a form of, like, I post something on social media, I post a video, I post a clip. It doesn't get a lot of hits. It doesn't get a lot of views. There are not a lot of comments, right? Those are no's for me, because then I have to keep going in spite of all those things that I see that are happening. It doesn't matter. I have to just keep going. That just continues to motivate me. It motivates me to want to do more, to figure out how to get the interactions, how to get the comments, how to get the interaction from people who are a part of my Rainbow Peeps and Friends.
No, it's beautiful that the HBCU has had a huge influence.
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing if the HBCU, attending Fisk University, has had a huge influence on you as a writer.
Absolutely it has, because many of you may not know, my major was history, not English, okay, not creative writing. I'm a history major. The reason I'm a history major is because I love history. I think it's important for us to understand who we are and where we come from, especially today, right? Having my history background is so, what's the word? It's so important to who we are as Black people in society, because as you can see, they're really trying to erase our history and tell us something is what it ain't. And I weave in history in every story I tell, because that's how important it is to me in some way or another. Including in Rainbow, you'll see the history of the WNBA going back to Cheryl Miller, when she's someone who doesn't really get the flowers that she deserves. I talk about what happened in Hurricane Katrina, to the Black people in Louisiana. And I just weave in those little components, and my goal is to hope that people, when they're reading the story, it makes them want to go and look it up and learn more about it. So I'm not going to give you like a history book on it, but I am going to drop some gems in there. And hopefully while you're reading my stories, you look it up. I also drop in some names of some other people who are important to history, a lot of Black women for sure. And the role that going to an HBCU has played on me is so pivotal that the stories that I tell, the first set of stories that I'll be releasing, including Rainbow, are set at a historically Black college and university. It's a fictional college, but it's definitely, the passion for it comes from Fisk University. It's called Franklin University, and that's named after one of the greatest historians of all time, who is John Hope Franklin, who's also a graduate of Fisk University.
That's powerful, right? Because I know there's a sense of pride of folks who go to HBCU, but to have a piece of that,
yeah.
It seems like you're allowing Fisk University to be an educational moment for folks who are going to read your books.
Yeah, I think that, my hope, I would love for people to start off at historically Black colleges and universities. How I ended up at Fisk is totally, I feel like it was God, because I had a history professor I was attending a junior college in Champaign-Urbana, and he was trying to get me to go to Fisk. At the time, I'm inner city Chicago. I'm like, what the hell is Fisk? But then from there, but one day, it just so happens that, I was really in a very, fertile place, let me just say. And I actually listened to what he had to say about Fisk, and I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh shit, this school is phenomenal. And then and from there, I went from what the hell is Fisk to, can I even get in? And so, can I even get accepted into this school? And then from there, the challenge was on. It's like, oh yeah, I got to get in. This was made for me. And he had been telling me that the whole time. He was like, you were made for Fisk, right? Because he went to Fisk. And he saw it in me. And I think we were just talking earlier about, finding people who see you. And he saw me, and he was like, you are made for that. And I actually had the ear to listen. And that's how I ended up at Fisk. And my hope is that more students, even if you're not Black, attend HBCUs, because I think that's how pivotal and important they are to the American society, because they provide so much American history for us. That's why I have to weave it into my stories.
The whole being seen and being, it's really just inspirational, because he was able to see a light in you.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily turned on at the time, right?
Exactly.
So even with that being now, right, as a writer, who sees and values you in this moment as?
I would say for sure my wife, first and foremost. She's been on this journey with me, supporting me. You know, being a writer, especially an independent writer, is a very well, I don't want to say poor. What's the other word for frugal?
Frugal.
Yeah, it's a very frugal journey. A lot of spending money and, you know, and working really hard to get a little bit of it back. So I can thank my wife for just her support. My family for sure. My brother, Sterling, he actually reads my blogs. He listens to my podcast. He responds to me. My mom does, and my auntie Nita, she supports me as well. And I think that my Rainbow Peeps and Friends, people I call my Rainbow Peeps and Friends online, they're supporters of me. I was able to get out into the community this summer and sell my book and meet people face to face directly. And I'm learning that I actually have a community of people who want to read the stories about Black queer lives. And I would say that they are part of the people who support me as well. And it's been very refreshing to know that there is a place for the stories that I write, and having that personal connection and interaction with people has just been phenomenal.
And also, like, you know, your wife and the whole tribe supporting you in this, on this journey.
You know, it's overwhelming. I was just telling Carmen that, like, I know you can't see it, but I'm so excited. It's like overwhelming. It's amazing to like see it come to fruition, because I wrote Rainbow in 2019, right before the pandemic, and so I had all these plans and all these goals lined up, everything, and interviews, and I was gonna be out in the street, these book fairs, and when the pandemic happened, all that shit just got shut down, and it sent me into like a creative depression. I'm not even gonna lie, and so much so that I didn't really feel like Rainbow had a place to even be sold anymore. I was like, I need to get this next book out. But then, you know, it was my wife who spoke into me like, no, you go out there, you sell the book that you have written. And it's like people in your corner who have belief in you sometimes when you don't have belief in yourself, who believe in your stories. I was just at a book signing at a seat at the table, and the author, I can't remember his name right now, I'm so sorry, but he was talking about how Stephen King, his story that he wrote, Carrie, he threw it in the trash, and his wife took it out of the trash. And that ended up being the book that got him to become Stephen King.
Wow.
Right? So you got to have that. You know, you got to have a person in your corner who's about to have your back and be down with you no matter what. Like, you just out here at these festivals, but they can see something that you can't even see.
Like chess versus checkers, right? And then also, as creative,
Absolutely.
That's the example, it was Carmen, right? Being able to say, nah, you still got a lot more shelf life. So no, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm glad that you have that support system.
Yeah.
And you're able to kind of see the fruits of your labor from 4 years ago, 5 years ago come out, you know? So that's beautiful. A lot of artists, a lot of authors, they have a first and last name, you know, as the author, right? But yours is a little different.
Yeah.
Right? The Writer Verde Arzu, right? So do you mind breaking down that artist name and where it came from and
Absolutely. I get a lot of compliments on that name. Verde comes from my last name is Green, and Verde, of course, is green in Spanish. And then my last name is Arzu, and that's my father's last name. My father is from Honduras, born and raised, and he came to the United States in his 30s, right? So he's an immigrant to the United States. I'm Afro-Latina in part, right? And so I pay homage to my father in that way because it's just important to me. I love my dad. I think a lot of the fight and the grit and the determination that I have in myself comes from him. When you come to another country, you open up a business, you open up two businesses, you learn how to speak English, you have a thick accent, you're a black man, you know, all of those things. I just wanted to acknowledge the whole of me in some way. And so I do that by my pen name, which is Verde Arzu.
Give a shameless plug about, like, you know, where they can find you at, any projects that you're currently working on, where can they purchase your books at, things of that nature.
Absolutely. So you can find me on verdearzu.com. That's my website. On the website, I sell some merchandise related to my first book, Rainbow. You can also check out my blog. It's called VA's blog, and that's where I write a lot of different nonfiction pieces about social justice issues, things that matter to me, things that I find to be important. I write a blog about them. And then also I have a podcast called Verde's Folding Chair, where I make space at the table for other Black women who are just like myself, who are independent writers, who are Black queer independent writers, but also those who are marginalized as well. You can find a space at the table on my podcast. If you are a local artist or a local entrepreneur, there's a space at the table for you at Verde's Folding Chair. And you can find Verde's Folding Chair wherever you listen to podcasts. And also I have a YouTube channel, which please subscribe to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to having more conversations with Make-It-Madu.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Appreciate you.